and welcome to Sweetpea Cyd's Inspirations. My name is Sydney, and today we are going to be experimenting and dyeing several different types of wools with coffee. Yes, you heard that correct, with coffee. This is my very first time doing this, so this is completely experimental. I have no clue how the coffee is actually going to take on the wool. We know that coffee does like to stain, but is it actually going to stay and adhere to the fiber? We are going to find out, and I'm going to give you the end results at the end of today's video. So we're going to go ahead and head over to my kitchen and go ahead and get started. One of the very first steps is we are going to have to make a mordant bath. Now, what that means is I'm going to take my yarn or my fiber and I'm going to put it in a bath. Sometimes you will see this labeled as like an acidic bath because people will use like citric acid, white distilled vinegar, alum, and a few different other things. Now, usually when I use my Descartes acid dyes, I will use citric acid. But today I am actually going to be using some alum. It is new to me. This is all experiment. I am not a professional at this by any means. This is all completely experimental. So with coffee, there is tannins in coffee, but unlike tea, you still need something that will help adhere the dye to the fiber. So today, again, I am going to be using some alum. Now, I can also add cream of tartar into this as well, and that will pull even more color from the coffee, but I'm not going to do that today. Now, the reason why you do have to use alum with coffee or some kind of acid with it is because the tannins aren't as strong in coffee as they are in tea, and there's a few different factors. One being the brewing method, the origins or the variety of the coffee, but also the roast levels. So that is the reason why we are going to be using alum today, dyeing a few different types of wool that I have received from a good friend, which is Shannon over at Shannon Talks Yarn. She sent me some yarn, but also she sent me a few samples of different wools to try out, which came from Knit Picks or We Crochet. So one of the very wools that we have here is a super wash merino wool, this is going to be the first time that I have dyed a super wash wool or anything that is super wash. And the thing with superwash, if you don't know, it does have a resin layer to it to keep it from velting. So one thing that you can do before you make your bath, you can pre-wash your fiber, and I definitely recommend doing that if you do have raw unprocessed fiber, protein fiber, because it will draw out any impurities, oils, stuff like that. But also if you have manufactured wool or yarn or fiber, then it would be a good idea to also wash those as well, or scour them, just to draw any kind of products that the manufacturer has placed on these fibers. So I have not chosen to do that today. I really didn't feel like it, and I just wanted to see how they would do as they are. So we do have some superwash merino, some baby alpaca, and then this one is 80% merino wool, 15% baby alpaca, and 5% viscose. It is a tweed. And then we have two different Peruvian Highland wools. This one is Palette from Knit Picks, which is a fingering weight. And then we have wool of the Andes. Again, this is Peruvian Highland wool as well. And this one is worsted weight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take each of these fibers and I'm going to place it into my bath. Now I have 8 cups of lukewarm water here, and I am going to put about 3/4 of a tablespoon into this bath. Now, how I got this was from somebody else doing this, and this equals up to about 2 ounces of fiber. She gave measurements for 4 ounces, so I just divided that into 2. So I'm going to do about 3/4 of a tablespoon here of the alum. Again, this is all just experimentation. I'm going to mix that up here. And then I'm just going to let all of this yarn soak in for about an hour, because over here I have something else that's going to be happening as well. So over here I am going to be doing my coffee dye bath, and there's really no math to the madness with this. I just kind of came up with something and then I'm going to go from there. So I am going to be taking about 3/4 of a cup of stale coffee grounds, and I'm going to place it into this pot here. And then I'm going to take 4 cups of water, and we are going to let that soak, or actually not let it soak, we're going to let it boil on a medium. And this is what the coloration looks like. It is a very, very dark brown. And I'm going to let it do its thing for about an hour while my fiber soaks. And I've got it on a medium heat. If I need to bump it up to a higher heat or lower it down, I will. But we're going to let it do its thing for about an hour. Now, after this, you can either strain out the coffee grounds or you can keep the coffee grounds in there. Depends on what you want. I'm going to actually keep my coffee grounds in because I'm going to see if the fiber might take up some specks. So I'm going to let it do its thing for about an hour and then I'll come back. My coffee dye pot is now ready. It has been a little bit less than an hour. I did have to turn it down to a low simmer. So she is sitting about 132, 135-ish. When you are dyeing fibers, especially protein fibers, you really don't want to exceed over 180 degrees Fahrenheit because you can damage your fibers, so it become brittle, and you can even wilt them as well. So off camera, I did go ahead and drain the water off of my fiber here. So we're going to go ahead and dip these in. I'm going to let it do its thing. Now, usually I will let the dye kind of exhaust itself, but I think with as concentrated as this coffee is, I don't think it's going to 100% exhaust itself. So if not, I'll let it sit in there for about 20-ish minutes, and then I'm going to let it completely cool, turn off the heat and get it off the heat and let it completely cool. Then I will drain the water, let the fibers die, or not die, but let the fibers dry, and then I will come back with the final results. Now for the final results. Honestly, I'm a little disappointed because I thought the coffee would have taken up on the wool a lot better than what it actually did. And the specs for the coffee grounds did not work. I had a feeling that they would not. But again, this was all experimental. So if you do give this a go, there is no sense in keeping coffee grounds in your dye bath other than if you want a hassle trying to get them out of your fiber or your yarn. And I really did not take that in consideration when I was experimenting. And I was like, oh my gosh, what did I do when I was trying to get the grounds out of the yarn? But anyways, for the final results, we'll start off with the tweed sample. There is a little bit of a coloration here other than just the plain white. But again, there isn't a lot, not as much as I kind of anticipated that there would be. And then there is also, same thing with the alpaca. You can tell that there's a little bit of dye here, but not much. It looks like just white alpaca fiber. Now, where I did see the major results was the Peruvian and the superwash merino wools. Now, one of these Peruvians was or dyed a little bit darker than the other one. So really this kind of, with all of these fibers, it turned into a little bit of an ombre here. So here is one of the Peruvians. Now I am going to have to rehang these. Again, you can't really on camera see, but it is a little bit darker than the alpaca and the tweed. I don't know if you can actually tell here. And then here is the second Peruvian wool. Let me see if I can put them side by side where you can actually see. So I don't know if you can really tell a difference, but there is a slight difference in color between the two. And then the one that shockingly actually took up quite a bit of dye, which I was really surprised because it is a super wash and it does have a resin. And like I stated, I did not wash these fibers before dyeing them, and that could be maybe part of the problem here. I don't know. But was actually the super wash merino. This one had the darkest dye to it. It is more of a light coffee caramel color. And you can definitely tell the difference between all of these versus the superwash merino. So again, the results were a little disappointed, but again, this was all experimental. I have never done this before, but I will say do not keep your coffee grounds in the dye bath because again, it is just a pain in the butt when you do go to rinse your yarn or your fibers out. But I hope this maybe has helped somebody in a way who is wanting to experiment with dyeing with coffee. And I might try to re-dye these again and see how they turn out. I don't know, we'll see. But that is it for today's video. I just want to say thank you for tuning in today. Thank you for watching today's video. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next one.